20-minute match. You're going to drive 20 minutes to play one match? No, you're not going to do it. So it doesn't fit what they do at all.
Exactly. But that's why we have guys like Luke Jensen to give us answers. Answers.
We're looking for answers.
We're always looking for answers. Hi,
so
Luke.
I'm late.
It's okay. 2 minutes. Nobody's going to be upset. I am Sean. I don't know if you've met Bobby before.
Hey, Bobby.
How you doing, Luke?
Very good, buddy.
I appreciate you making time. So I just pointed as though for you, Bobby's over there.
Okay.
Bobby's right there for me. We got a slow start as we get in. One of the things we like to do is we're live a couple of different places. For those that like to follow kind of how the background work is done, and we'll cut you in when we do a podcast specific, when we do that post-production. I cut us in after the hellos and nice to meet yous and make sure our sound works, things like that.
Gotcha.
So you're in Atlanta currently. Actually, well, you're in a car currently, it looks like.
Currently in yeah. I didn't know we were going to be video. Yeah, so I'm outside of your serve and got to pick up a racket or two or shoes or just a bad attitude. You know, lots of different things could happen at your serve.
Very true. You could probably get all three of those things from any.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. They don't like it because a lot of people demo rackets like hitting the ball. I demo them by throwing the racket. I mean, I want to see kind of like distance, you know, how it carries. Those things are very important to a tennis player who throws their racket a lot.
Bounce height is important.
Bounce. Oh, you get it. Back in the day, we used to play on that Rebound Ace, those recycled tires out the Australian.
Oh, yeah.
Man, those things, you can get some airtime on that. It really should have been like a competition for bonus money because you can really get some airtime. And the thing is, if you don't crack the racket, that should be an extra like bonus points.
That's got to be its own skill.
I would think so. Yeah.
That's got to be its own skill. But so you're outside, you're in Atlanta. There's one of the things Patricia was saying. She's like, "You want to talk to Luke? He's in town." I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
Have you met Zoom? Like, Zoom doesn't care where Luke is.
No, doesn't care. My agent doesn't care. It was just, I got car wash deals. I've got landscaping deal. I got so many deals. Just, hey, let's sign you up. And I just got like all these various, you know, when you have a great agent, you know, you're always in front of people.
That helps.
It actually does.
Can we borrow your agent? We're gonna have to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Highly recommend. Now you're going to have to go to work. You know, so you got to go to work. You know, she doesn't like, you know, players that don't go to work, but it's really hard to. Go ahead.
We've been putting in the work. We just need the agent to.
There you go.
Work.
You get the agent. Yeah, that's the thing. Like the players don't understand now because their brand and their social media and everything, that your agent is only as good as your success on the tennis court.
Sure.
They don't care if you posted like the sushi you ate that night or like you actually walking to the tennis. No. You need to win matches. Rankings, wins, matters.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll steal. It's a great segue, Bobby. I know you want to ask the question. We talk about rankings matter, and Luke, you were well ranked, not just in the United States as a junior. And Bobby, I know you had something specifically you were talking about that was about Luke's feelings or how his pressure. I'm sure Luke doesn't come across as a guy who handles pressure well, but
well, just what it's like to be number one in the world at anything. You know, you were the number one ranked junior in the world for 2 years. That's clarify that. It always gets, the older I get, it's that back and row thing, the better I was.
Mm-hmm.
I was number one for a little bit. I'd won the Italian juniors at 18 and 1984, and then semis of the French, quarters of Wimbledon, going into the US Open after winning the hard courts, the clay courts, and I think round of 16 or quarters of Kalamazoo. Like in that window, I was number one for like a cup of coffee. And then this guy, Mark Kratzman, overtook me. He won the US Open juniors in Australia. And I went semis of Orange Bowl, and I won this Rolex indoors to finish my year in '84. So I finished number 2, but I'll take that. Got there for a little bit in the summer of '84, but it was really remarkable because 4 years prior, I was the number 2 ranked player in Northern Michigan. It's not a section, it's a district, and it's in the heartland. Basically, Bigfoot lives there, and it's Detroit's in the south, and Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids in the southern part of the state. So in this little district, I was ranked 2, and there were 2 guys ranked. And the reason I got to go to sectionals is because they took the 2 best out of that district of every age group. And even though I lost 0-0 in the 14 and unders, I was given the opportunity because there was only 2 guys eligible. And then I went down the sectionals, and that was really my first time of really seeing national caliber players and kids that were sponsored, kids that were ranked number 1 from Chicago, Detroit, nationally, played international things. So that was my first time of seeing in person, high level junior tennis. And in 1979, specifically, NBC covered Wimbledon live, 2:00 in London, 9 a.m. here, and breakfast at Wimbledon, Bud Collins. And it was Borg versus Roscoe Tanner, this fire breathing lefty from Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. And it was 5 sets, and Borg never missed. And he just never, got upset with line calls. There was something about the Iceman that drew me to the game, and tennis was going from the country clubs to the public parks. It was the tennis boom of the 70s. And I was hitting the wave as it was just really about to crest, because that's when the boom in the northern part of the country started building tennis houses, indoor tennis clubs. So now the kids in the north could play year round. And we not only could equal what the kids in the south, Florida, Texas, California were doing, but we could play longer, because if they got rain for a week, they didn't play. We could play before school, after school, and there's way more to my story, but I had the right coach at the right time. Both my parents were high school coaches. My dad coached football and tennis, which is an interesting combination, but it kind of was part of our mindset. Think like a football player and try to figure out how to play that in tennis. And then my mom was a gymnastics coach as well as a phys ed teacher. So being around a coaching environment where kids in the community was really the key aspect of contributing to the next generation of leaders, and learning that work ethic. And then, to be honest, my first coach, this guy, Don Dickinson, was down in Grand Rapids, and he taught me how to put the ball in the court, because I used to hit over the fence, the side fence, anything but in the court was my game. And there was a moment where I had a kind of a come to Jesus, where it's either you keep the ball in the court 25. I'd lost a match. And again, another time just missing too much. And there was a game or drill that he had called 25 ball drill. And you had to put the ball in 25 times in that side, one side or the other. And he would tee off. He'd get the whole court. I had the one side. And so I'm 14. I'm a 8th grader, 9th grade. And I have to keep the ball deep. I have to keep the ball in. And every time I got upset, I'd run a 3-mile loop. And we called it running the circle or something. And so I just kept on getting upset, running 3 miles, come back. And, you just had to break that habit of missing and get into finding that rally ball, finding depth, finding consistency. And that was really the moment, because he said, you either leave the court and never come back, or you figure it out. And for me, I figured it out. We have this thing in our family called Jensen's Never Quit. And I figured that out. And that was the first time I could really understand, instead of hitting tennis balls, I was actually playing tennis. Instead of hitting it, I was playing the game for the first time. And 2 years later, Dickinson moved to Tucson, Arizona, and started an academy out there. And, back in the day, the Easter Bowl used to be played and the Copper Bowl at this El Conquistador resort. But it was too far away from home. And I ran into this guy, Brian Marcus, who was at the Atlanta Athletic Club for years and years. But when he was in Michigan, he taught me the big game. So I'm a sophomore now. I'm nationally ranked. And all of a sudden I'm serving and volleying. I'm 6'2", serving left-handed, right-handed. And Dickinson helped me do that and incorporate those two weapons. And then, 2 years later, I'm the #1 junior in the world, singles and doubles with Patrick McEnroe. But it was this 4-year window where I had the right coaches at the right time, parents who just judged us on effort. I loved approval from my parents. And if I came off the court, whether it was practice or a match, and my knees were bloody from diving for balls and elbows were bloody, I mean, that was always like, I got a lot of high fives and hugs from my parents. And I never got, or my sisters or my brother ever got jacked up for losing a match. If our effort wasn't there, we'd get jacked up. If we won 0-0, but our intensity wasn't there, focus wasn't there, we'd get, scolded and things. But I just had the right parents, the right, my siblings who were in the game, played the Grand Slams, and then having the right coaches. And I was blessed to go to USC that had Dick Leach, who's a Hall of Fame collegiate coach. I roomed with his son who won 8 Grand Slams. Rick Leach was on the US Davis Cup team with me in 91 and 92. And he won Davis Cup a bunch of other years. And I just, you got to be in front of good people. And so being #1 was a byproduct of a lot of people that were always believing that, you can serve with both hands and hit overheads with both hands. Yeah, you can come from nowhere and become a pro tennis player. And watching that 79 Wimbledon's like, that's the coolest sport. I want to go there. I want to win that tournament.
That's the seminal moment that I want to touch on, because you basically answered the question, who are you and why do we care? Because a lot of people are going to know who you are and know a bit of your story. And that's a generic, okay, yeah, he's been on television, professional tennis player. Maybe that's why we care. I want to talk about that seminal moment where you're watching tennis. I remember watching tennis as a kid, looking at it going, I want to do that. I think there's less of that now, where we have that moment that says, I'm going to go play tennis. I'm going to go do that thing. And then you had the next moment that is that 0-0 loss at sectionals. And I remember my actual first USTA tournament. I didn't win a game in the main draw or the back draw. I was 0 for 2 and out. And I'm sitting in the car kind of crying, how whatever 14-year-old boy crying looks like. Is this really going to be my life? But you get past that and you realize, okay, that was my introduction to some real tennis.
Yeah.
Real tennis players. Those seminal moments, I think, are such, in my opinion, a more interesting story as we push, especially in the Atlanta area where it's more social and we're trying to get more kids to play.
It's a defining moment. I mean, you come across, if you're prepared for those moments and it's going to hit you and you don't know if it's going to be your life's work, it's just you're right now and watching Borg and everything. But that moment for me was, I worked my tail off before school, after school, with Don Dickinson, and he'd given all the fundamentals, which was great. I went from losing 0-0 in the district qualifier, and then all of a sudden the next year I'm playing my first national, and I go down there. I honestly have an Arthur Ashe comp. That's a metal racket. If you're young, that's an old Arthur Ashe metal racket, and I had a wood racket of Jack Kramer. So I'm going to nationals. I mean, look at kids today. They're locked in with the 16 bag. I mean, it's great. I absolutely love it. But I honestly, there were no bags back then. You had 2 rackets you carried around, and I was just this lumberjack from northern Michigan. So I had a metal racket and a wood racket, and I get to play the number 12 player in the nation. And so I'm down there by myself, and Murphy was at a national. He was in the 12 and unders, and he was at another facility. But my parents couldn't afford to take us or anything. So the old traveler's checks, American Express traveler's checks, they give you some money. You go down, you split a room, and I remember specifically going down. My parents always loved that I played the best players. Whether it was the #1 seed, you want to see where you stand up with the best players. You want to win, but let's see where you are. So you bring it back to the practices and get better. So I felt the opportunity to play the number 12 player. And with the football mentality, I was like, you look across the net and I say, can I take this guy? And it's not winning the tennis match. The football mindset, you look across the line of scrimmage, can I beat the crap out of this guy? Can I physically take this guy? So that was always like I played tennis like a football player. And so when this guy walks out, he's 12 in the nation. And he's just like, the only sport this guy could play is tennis. He maybe golf. There's no way he's playing football, basketball. He's just wiry string bean kid. And I'm like, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to kill this guy and go out there. And I win the first game. I'm like, I'm going to double bagel this guy. I lose 12 games in a row. I lose 1-0. All of a sudden I start flagging the ball again. The guy's putting the ball in, and real easy why I lost. But he was just more consistent. And I said, God, if that guy is 12, I want to see what number 1 looks like. Because I got triple crown there. I lost first round of singles main draw, first round of singles back draw, and then lost first round of doubles. I was 0 for 3.
I know that.
But I start. Well, yeah, but we all get there, if you're reaching for better competition. So I start looking around and I was like, okay, where's number 1? There's number 1. This guy, Richie Renneberg, ended up winning some Grand Slams, playing on the US Davis Cup team. There's Eric Amon. I played with him at USC. He was like 2. Patrick McEnroe was out there. He was top 10. I'm looking around and I'm not seeing any athletes. I'm looking around like I could crush every one of these guys. Like I could honestly put them in a headlock and I body slam them in the ground, take them out. And I started saying, you know what? This is no lie. I'm looking, okay, in football, I've been going to football camps my whole life. Every kid my age is like my size or bigger, or basketballs, my size or bigger. And I look at tennis like all I have to do is figure out how to put the ball in play. And I'm going to own this thing. And that was really my defining moment where the losses were my rocket fuel. And another time throughout my tennis career, there were stages where I kind of plateaued, maybe took it for granted. And I had a defining loss, and it plateaued me where I got that boost of rocket fuel from humiliation or a defining moment. Like, that's not acceptable. I got to work harder. And that was it for me, where juniors, when I see them today, listen, they're a lot better than I was. I have my nieces and nephews that play at different levels, and they're a lot better than I was. But I'll tell you one thing, every time I walked on the court, one thing was for certain, I was going to show more effort and enthusiasm than anybody else. So if somebody walked by the tennis courts and they saw a bunch of juniors running around, they would know, I don't know who that kid is, but he's picking up balls faster than everybody else. He's jumping on his toes while he's waiting in line. Like, that kid's something, or something's going on there, where everybody else was like, how they group, or they just tap the balls around. They spend more time picking up than hitting balls. And in the end, that was my secret weapon, is that I wasn't going to get outworked. And, hard work works. And the 4 of us, made it on this Grand Slam level. So I just think we had that moment. Instead of getting defeated, we got inspired.
I like that. And Bobby knows a bit more of some of your stories, because he has spent some time with Patricia Jensen. So I know Bobby's got some questions. He wants to hear it. Hear it from you specifically, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm laughing because, Luke, I'm a little older, very close in age. So we are contemporaries, grew up in the North. So same thing, came from a different field of athletics. I was a baseball player. Big difference is you were physically imposing. I'm not. I'm 5'9", but I felt the same way. I always laughed. I was like, I could beat these guys in anything else I'm doing. They're beating me 0-0. And it was humiliating and a little different. I always laugh because didn't play tournaments, but I was like, I didn't need to go anywhere to lose. I lost easy in my club. But now you grow up and you realize you're playing against Randy Vigmestad, Chris Garner, the Van Ostrands. There was some talent at my club, but when you're losing at 14, you're just losing. So I'm just going down memory lane laughing. Yes, I'm very good friends with your mom, Miss Patricia. But we not giving Dad enough credit. Good genetics there. Dad, Hall of Famer at University of Minnesota.
Well, well, he played at the University of Minnesota, and then his coach transferred, or basically took a job at Memphis State, now Memphis, University of Memphis. And so he played down there, and then played again briefly for the New York Giants, and with Sam Huff and those years. And it was just a different time. I think they made $15 a game. Yeah. He wasn't a star player or anything like that. So it was easier back then. You just get a job in the real world. And that was, he got his degree in phys ed. And it was, to be honest, my mom played basketball back in the day, 6'2", but before Title IX. So there was no place for her to go in college. Right. So very blessed to be the next generation from parents that were frustrated tennis players. And so for us, it was parents were going to do whatever possible to give us the opportunity to be whatever we wanted to be. And all four of us, tennis was the one that my sisters and my brother and I could all play at the same tournament. So cut down on costs, not one baseball, not one football player, not one in dance or something. So we were blessed that way to have the parents that wanted to really make their kids, give them the opportunity, make them special, but they had to do the work. They did their 50%, and then we matched that with our effort and intensity, enthusiasm. But it was really, genetics were a huge part. I mean, one sister's 6 feet, the other one's 5'10". They're twins. Murphy is 6'4", and so almost that perfect size for specifically tennis.
Right. So tell us one thing, always curious, obviously, number one is a junior, the Grand Slam. We always hear the players say they want to be peaking by the finals. Let's go back 93, that French Open experience. How's it start? How do you maintain the intensity? Now we're getting close. We might actually pull this off, to keep it all level, to actually pull it off.
Yeah, if my answers get long, just cut me off because I can get going. The reality is that I'm 2.5 years older than Murphy, and I turned pro in 87 after 2 years at Southern Cal. And then Murphy joined the team in 88, 89, and then transferred to Georgia in 90. And that's when the whole Jensen clan moved to Atlanta. When Murphy transferred to Georgia, Atlanta's obviously the number one tennis city in the world, and has at every level, every facility. I mean, you can just stay here and just become a Grand Slam champion just by training out of the facilities here, the knowledge, the coaching out of here. So I turned pro in 87. So I had kind of a couple year head start working through the minor leagues of the game. And I had teamed up with a guy from Australia, Laurie Warder, in 91 and 92. And we jumped in the top 10 2 years straight. And my dream and Murphy's dream, we were always kind of, we always wanted to play doubles together at the pro level since we were kids, that we were going to be a doubles team. And then he turned pro in 90, after his junior year at Georgia. So he turned pro and started working his way up. And I would bounce down from time to time and play those smaller tournaments with him, but then go back up where the money was and play in 91, 92. With Laurie Warder, we made the World Championships a couple of years. And then it was Murphy got into the top 100 and I was top 10. And it's like his ranking was high enough where we could slide into these Australian Open, Sydney, San Jose. I mean, San Francisco, all these tour level events. So Laurie went to play with another guy. They ended up winning the Australian, and Murphy and I did well. We got to the I think the semis or finals of Sydney. And then we had some first round losses, but we have semis of San Francisco and then a couple of early losses. And then the tournaments Murphy couldn't get in, like Indian Wells. I had finaled with an old college teammate, Scott Melville, or like Madrid. We got to the finals there. So it was just kind of fine where Murphy and I could get in the tournaments. But there was a point after Miami Open, we got into like a losing streak, Murphy and I, and it was 8 weeks in a row, first round. And it was one of those gut check things because I'd reached the quarters the year before in the French, done well in third round of Wimbledon. So I had a lot of points coming up. I think finals of Rome, the Italian Open, won a smaller lead up event to the French. So I was top 10, but the gold standard as a pro is not the cash. That's a byproduct of your winning and hard work. It's the points you get that get you into the bigger tournaments, the points you win that sustains you out there. And it's a 12-month deal. I mean, you've got to back that sucker up the next year. You're only as good as what you can defend. And every player knows what's coming up, what points are coming up. They know, especially now, you could figure it out in the math in the old days because the rankings would come out every Monday, 52 weeks a year. Now it's live ranking. I know if I'm going up or going down, what will happen if I do go down. So it's a different pressure for the players now. But after we lost our 8th tournament in a row, first round, and that was at the German Open we were in Hamburg, 3 sets, and we lost matches every which way possible. Really bad. We had match points, 3 sets, 2 sets, every which way. And Murphy was really feeling it. He was like, listen, you got all these points coming off. If you I don't know if this is going to work out. It's like kind of another defining moment and a kind of a fork in the road. Like, what are we going to do? And I really had no doubt. This is what I wanted to do. It's what I always wanted to do. So I, as the big brother, and I said, listen, we're going to make it. I believe in you. And I really do believe. He's 6'4", left-handed, serves 130, huge shot maker. But this was his, wasn't even his first full year. He was like just 6 months on the real tour. That's where the real players are. Then the people that are playing pro tennis. That means people that are playing pro tennis, but they're not making any money. Professional means you are making money as a mechanic, as a drywaller, like you're making a living. Same thing in pro tennis. If you're in the top 100, for the most part, you are at least breaking even. And the higher you rank, you're making some more money. And that's a professional tennis player. And Murphy was just 6 months into that, where everyone's playing for their scratch and their cash. And it's a different type of animal that can really survive that jungle. And so I said, I believe in you. I don't care if we drop to 1,000 in the world and we're playing in some, future satellite in South America or South Africa. We're going to do this. We're going to figure this out and we're going to get it. And it was like, that was the confidence, or that was like the reassurance maybe he needed, because the next week, we got in the dogfight with the team that it was the #1 seed at the Italian Open. We're in Rome playing at night. It's an unbelievable experience playing in Rome at night. The fans are whistling and throwing coins at you. And it's crazy. And it was Marc Rosset and Jakob Lasik. They had won the French the year before. They played Davis Cup for Switzerland. We'd beaten them, the U.S. in the U.S. Davis Cup win in '91. And I was on that team as a practice partner. It was McEnroe, Sampras, Agassi, Courier, Chang. So I knew them very well. Murphy had never played against them or anything like that. We win that in 3 sets. And it got a little chippy, we always play with a lot of intensity. And we tried it all the time, like make it a brawl. And high fives, chest bumps, and things like that. And traditional tennis, they didn't like that. And so, they'd take a couple of shots, and, that's where we wanted. We wanted that kind of match. So we win that, get to the semis, and then get to the next week, which is Bologna, Italy, which is a warm-up tournament. And we get to the finals. So great, we're on kind of a roll, and we get to Paris on that Monday. And Murphy's, I'm sorry, take that back. So they always finish the week of the Saturday before the major start is when those warm-up tournament finishes. So we got like a Sunday practice, and back then the day before was really quiet. No one was really there. Players were kind of done. We were getting like the last late afternoon practice. And I sat with him and I said, Murph, we could win this tournament. And he's like, he'd never been to Paris before. What are you talking about? I said, no, seriously, like we could win this tournament. And he just thought we were nuts. I said, we just have too many weapons. We just go out there in every single match. And so it really started, we were unseeded, unproven. There wasn't anything to say that like we're really like a proven team at all. We had won some matches and had a nice little run. But I always feel like when you, in this sport specifically, players, I don't think they understand it enough. They talk about, I need confidence. I need to play with confidence. If you don't have confidence, you can't play in that rare air. You're done. Like you're confident or you're not. And you better be confident when you're getting your teeth kicked in, you're down a set and a break, or you're in the fifth set and you got nothing left in the tank. You better have something. And that's a choice. Confidence is choice. And I tell kids that all the time, and they have a tough time understanding that. Just because you win a bunch of matches doesn't mean you're confident. That means you've got some momentum. And that's exactly what we had. We had some momentum going into the French Open. Because the last 2 weeks at the Italian, and then this warm-up tournament in Bologna. And then really how it started is that we really competed well as a team. And we win the first match 12-10 in the third. We're down match points. I hit a return. I break a string. They go back to me. I make a decision, another defining moment. Do you lob it or do you rip it? I rip it. We end up winning. You know, that ball could have just still been flying today. But, you know, the tennis gods blessed us and it went in. We win that match. Next round, we win 12-10 in the third. The down match points, win that one. So now we're in the third round and we're down 5-3 in the third. And Murphy and I are fighting with each other. We used to compete really hard against our opponents, but we used to compete really hard with each other. And throughout the match, we'd be going at each other like siblings do. And so fortunately, our mom was there, who's the boss, the agent and everything. And she just happened to be at the tournament. And during this rain delay, I'm in the players' lounge and I'm nowhere close. I have no idea where Murphy is. I'm honestly on the phone with United Airlines. And I'm looking at my watch and I know this rain delay is going to be over in like 40 minutes. They have covers on the court. They're going to pull the covers back. We're going to lose one game and I can be on a 7:30 flight back to the United States. I can be fishing tomorrow for salmon in Lake Michigan. And I can, I'll be, getting ready for Wimbledon. All of a sudden there's a pull on the back of my shirt and there's Murphy and it's my mom holding both of us like Mama Bear does and banging our heads together. You two work together. It was like we were juniors all over again, banging our heads together, start working together, start communicating and stop fighting. Yes, Mom, in front of all the other players. Sabatini's there, hot babes on the WTA tour. It was really embarrassing, but it kind of like woke us up. We end up winning 7-5 in the third. Fantastic. Now we're in the second week. We're in the fourth round, and which is quarters. And we get to play Ivanisevic and Leconte. Leconte's big French showman and everything. And every time when we warmed up, and it was in the old number one court called the Bull Ring. And the fans were right on top of you. They've now taken that court away, but it was a special environment, especially when you play a Frenchman or a French player. And every time in the warm-up, we would hit the ball, they would boo us. And when they would hit the ball in the warm-up, they would cheer, go nuts, boo, yay. But, 5,000, 6,000 people doing this. So in the warm-up. So it was a unique environment. We end up winning. And there's another caveat, another area of the story, which is fun, but it's too long. So we win that match, get in the semis, win the semis over Edberg and Peter Korda, Sebi Korda's dad. And they'd won Monte Carlo earlier that year. And so after the third round, someone said in the locker room, one of the fellow players said, if you win this, what are you going to do for your celebration? Borg used to go to his knees. Pat Cash went up into the players box. No one ever done that before at Wimbledon. But everyone has like their unique thing. And so for whatever reason, I said, if we win this thing, and Murphy's like, win this thing? What are you talking? We just won like 3 matches by the skin of our teeth. I mean, like all 3 matches could have went the wrong way. And I said, well, if we win, I'm going to body slam Murphy on the court. Like, it will be the most memorable celebration of all time. So now we're in the finals. And when I said that, it was like 5 days ago. So we get the finals is on a Saturday after the Mary Jo Fernandez, Steffi Graf match. And we're sitting in the locker room. And the one thing when you get to these majors is it's filled. The locker room is filled with players and coaches and bags. That first like 3 or 4 days with doubles players, with singles players, you're on top of each other. But by the time you're at the end of the major, everybody's gone. It's honestly you, and in this case, my partner, and then it was our opponents, and that's it. We didn't have a coach. They had a coach. We played these 2 Germans. It was Gollner and Prinisel, and they spoke perfect English. And they were honestly 10 feet away. And normally, like, Graf wins in like under an hour. So you kind of anticipate your warm-up, you anticipate everything. And it's just a magical experience because this is your moment. Like, you may never get there again. And that's the one thing that I've never played a match where I felt, if I don't win now, I may never get this opportunity again. And being known as a French Open finalist compared to a French Open champion, that's a completely different area code, zip code, parking lot altogether. And I definitely knew that going in. And so we're waiting in the locker room. This match ended up going 3 sets. So there's extra time to sit there. Okay. Like, we're, constantly worry about the game plan. Should I eat now? Should I not eat now? Should I stretch? And I knew Patrick McEnroe since the juniors, and I got to play with him in doubles and hang out with him, which meant I got really good connections with Johnny Mac. So I practiced with Johnny Mac a ton when I was at college in LA. He was living in Malibu. I used to practice him out there, and then played him a few times on the tour before Murphy and I teamed up. And I was on the Davis Cup team with him in '92. And so he walks in because he's calling the match with Bud Collins, our doubles match. He's not calling the women's final. And it's just honestly like the Germans off to the side, and then Murphy and I are sitting there just waiting, and Mac comes in, and he gives us this like General Patton speech. Like, I want you, it's the day before the 49th anniversary of D-Day. And it's a huge deal in France, huge celebrations, and France is liberated and everything like that. So it's kind of, you as an American, you notice it, and you know it. In the French, it's a big deal. But McEnroe just starts going off. I want you to take these Germans, and I want you to take them back to the beaches, and I want you to, and I'm just like, this is the coolest thing. This is like my football, there's like Vince Lombardi, like McEnroe is going off, getting us fired up. And the other thing I'm thinking to myself is, these Germans, they speak perfect English. They weren't even alive when D-Day was going down. And Murphy's saying, why is John McEnroe screaming at me? And it was like the pep talk we needed. It was like this, like, you go out there and you're here to kick some serious butt. You're an American tennis player, an American competitor, and this is what we do. And this is what Connors does. And this is what Jack Kramer did. And that's what Ben, Chris Everett, this is what we do. And it just kind of got us kind of focused on going out to kick butt. So we get out there, win the first set, lose a tiebreaker in the second. And Murphy's like all upset and on the changeover that I've blown the tournament. And he's sorry that, we could have won, or we haven't lost it. We've been down in every single one of these matches. And he just kind of loses it for a while, and we get down 3-0. And I'm serving at 0-3. And it was the biggest moment of my tennis life, because I know if we go down double break, we're done. And that moment, just to keep us relevant, just to keep us within just striking distance. And I end up holding the most important service game of my life. It wasn't that hard, but it wasn't routine, just because what really was in the balance. What if I drop that game, we're done. So we get the 3-1, we break, and then Murphy holds, we start trading, we finally break at 4-all, and Murphy's serving for it. Now, Murphy, guy had never played the French Open. He played one major earlier the year in Australia. We lost, I think, first or second round. And he's serving for the match, and John McEnroe and, calling the match. I mean, it's perfect. So he goes out there, big serve, 15-love, another big serve, 30-love. Fantastic. And if you see doubles today, the teams huddle, the real good teams huddle to be on the same page of where the serve's going to go. What does the net player do? Even the return team, where they're trying to return and things. So Murphy and I huddled forever, and it was always business. Our entire lives, it was always where the serve's going, where does the server want the net player to go? So Murphy's the quarterback of the team when he's serving. He's calling the shots, calling the plays. So he comes up to me at, 5-4 in the third, 30-love. And he goes, whatever you do, don't hurt me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he says, don't be stupid. I know you can do something stupid, and just don't hurt me. I go, dude, we haven't won anything yet.
The celebration's coming.
Yeah, the celebration. Yeah, right. So double fault, brick volley, 30 all. Things are getting really dicey. So I know at this point, as soon as he gets the ball in the box, I've got to cross. I've got to go as soon as possible and cross. So he gets the serve in, and I leave so early. The opponent Goldner couldn't believe he had this opportunity. A freight train could have he could have thrown the ball for a winner, because I was already committed, and he missed it to give us match point. So we get the match point. Murphy gets it in. I try to poach. I can't get there. Murphy gets the volley back. So they start lobbing. So it's basically underneath Murphy, and he should take it. But at the last second, he goes, yours. So I have to scramble. And the one thing that I always feel, when you're up match point, you can't miss the ball. Because at least if you lose the match, you can sleep for the rest of your life and say, you know what, at least I didn't choke or blow it. So I massage it back down the middle. I don't push it, but I definitely didn't go for a winner. I was definitely going to put the ball in down the middle. They lob again. I hit another one down the middle, and the guy back deep behind the baseline, Prentisil rips it and misses it. We win the French Open. Unbelievable. Crowd's going nuts. I go to embrace Murphy. He goes to embrace me. I come up from up below, and I clock him with a forearm. He's going down to hug me. I'm coming up. I get him with a forearm. I think I gave him a concussion too. I break his jaw. He can't feel his face. He can't, he's kind of dizzy a little bit, and he starts swearing at me the obscenities that you wouldn't believe. He's ripping me as we're going to shake hands with our opponents. These German guys are looking at us going, what is wrong with these guys? There's something wrong with these Jensen brothers. So Murphy's all ticked off, pissed off. He grabs his gear and starts walking off the court. The tournament director goes, Monsieur Murphy, Monsieur Murphy. Murphy's like, what? You must pick up the trophy. He goes, and he slams his bag down. And they don't do it this way anymore. But back in the day, there was they'd put steps in a red carpet from the chair umpire all the way up to the president's box. And it was always the Musketeers from France. There's always these famous tennis players up there. So Murphy walks up like he wins the singles. I'm with the Germans, I just lost. Get up there, and there's a trophy that stays at Roland Garros. And that's the same with the singles, doubles, mixed doubles, juniors. And it's a bigger one, and then they give you smaller replicas. So Murphy takes it, and they as they hand us the winning trophy, Murphy takes it from my hands, holds it up like he just won the singles tournament. And the only picture I have with this trophy, I outreach as high as I can reach, because he's taller than I am. And I got 2 fingers and a thumb. I got 3 digits on this trophy. Is the only picture I have holding somewhat the French Open trophy. And then they put it back in the trophy case until you either win it again or you get to see it from afar. You never get to touch that trophy again. So Murphy, the Germans, they get a nice little, plate or whatever, and he won't talk to me. So Murphy's face, he thinks there's blood, there's no blood or anything. He can't really talk because his jaw's broken, but he's holding that trophy. So proud and so high. And to think that, and to answer your question, how do you get to that moment? And it's just chopping the wood, step after step, moment after moment, and things are going to happen where you have to figure it out. And in my career, I tell juniors all the time, I played one perfect match and I nearly lost it. And everything else was a battle. I wasn't one of these players that could, I'm going to be in the semis this week, or there's a guaranteed paycheck, when I get to the finals or maybe win this tournament. Every match was a battle. And I think every practice and every tournament that ever led me to that moment prepared me to win that tournament.
I love it. And you say confidence is a choice, but winning matches is momentum, because that was that question of peaking at the right time. And in that case, it wasn't necessarily peaking. It was a lot of things that came together. Even the John McEnroe speech, and then the mother smashing you boys back together. Right? You always give credit to others as well, which I really appreciate. You got to have those good people around you, and thankfully you've got Patricia Jensen and John McEnroe evidently helping you win matches. And
I'll give you 30 seconds too. In the quarters, when we're playing LeConte and Ivanisevic, one of the biggest servers in the history of the game, acing machine. And the day before, we were practicing. This guy, Dennis Ralston, who played at USC, won Wimbledon doubles at 18, in the Hall of Fame and everything. He was working with Gabby Sabatini, one of the hottest tennis players in the history of the sport. And he's going, hey, I can't warm her up. Can you guys warm her up? Absolutely. We can definitely warm up Gabby Sabatini. So we get out there, and back in the day, we used to call it hitting a pro shot. So when you go and talk to a girl and want to ask her out, we'd call it, okay, you got to hit approach shots, got to stick that approach shot, and come into the net. And she had really good passing shots. So, Murphy and I in this warm up are trying to ask her out, and she's trying to warm up for her match and everything. And so after we act like a couple of knuckleheads, Dennis says, hey, you guys play Ivanisevic and LeConte tomorrow. Why don't you guys play both back some on Goran's serve? He's not a real good volleyer. His ball doesn't come back that often. So he's not really good when the ball gets back on him. And if you play both back, give yourself a little bit more space and time in that defensive, in the first and second serve. I've done it on the first before, but we had never done it on the second. And it's another example of the right person at the right time. If we hadn't been chasing Gabby Sabatini, gives us a strategy. And, it's just being open and looking for opportunities, and it paid off.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to bring it back to Atlanta. You mentioned in an email recently that you're working with the Atlanta Open. So Can you tell me about what you're doing here in Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm blessed to have had Atlanta in our family since 1990. My first vacation, I think I was 8 years old. One of my mom's brothers, an uncle of ours, lived in Marietta near the Big Chicken. I'll never forget the Big Chicken and everything. And just a great summer. Went to Six Flags, but went to the Atlanta Open as a kid and got to see John McEnroe, and went to a clinic with Stan Smith and Dennis Ralston. And I mean, it was just awesome to see professional tennis, even though I didn't really understand it or anything, but it was just a great event. And watching, where such great talent really came from in the United States. Back in the day, Al Parker, who owns the national junior titles record, most gold balls in boys history in the juniors, All-American at Georgia, played some pro tennis stuff. Michael Pernfors, everything at Georgia, finals of the French Open. All these talented players and programs were coming out of Atlanta. The weather, the facilities, more importantly, when you're traveling and touring, everything direct from the airport. So instead of being up in Michigan where you needed like a stagecoach and get on a train, that you got to hike 50 miles, everything's direct, which is great as a pro tennis player. So I've been here since 90 in different capacities, played the Atlanta Open and played Alta, coached Alta and stuff. And just, there's such a great energy in tennis here, in the subdivisions and the clubs and things. Everybody's so positive. And then a couple years ago, Wayne Bryant was like the MC of the tournament for doing appearances for corporate sponsors and for Alta teams and things like that. And he couldn't do it one year. So I honestly was, after Wimbledon, I was salmon fishing in a kayak on Lake Michigan. And I get a call, from my mom, the agent, hey, Eddie Gonzalez, needs a replacement. Can you be here tomorrow? And I'm like, I'm smelling like salmon. Yeah. I'm rowing my kayak back in. I get in the car, couldn't make it in time for a flight, wasn't going to get me there. So I drove all night, get to Atlantic Station and start the next morning. I think we had an 8 o'clock clinic or something like that. And then we run clinics, do a lot of promotions because they bring in like Coco Goff, they bring in a Sloane Stevens, Matty Keys, Johnny Mack's been here to do like the kickoff for the tournament. Atlanta does such a great job, the Atlanta Open, just getting people involved because it's a tricky market. Tennis players here like to play. And unless you're bringing Roger Federer and Rafa and these guys, they don't watch unless you can't bring Roger Rabbit and expect. So they bring Kyrgios, Jack Sock is entertaining, Benoit Paire. They bring personalities as well as John Isner's won this thing like 6,000 times. But they have, now that the American men are doing extremely well, as well as the women. So you gravitate to the JJ Wolfs and you gravitate to the Sebi Cordas and the Taylor Fritzes, and you see the Jensen Brooksbys. So my involvement really has been kind of a year-round presence of ticket sales, awareness, because I live local in Sandy Springs. It's just it's a home game for me. And I'm blessed to be able to still be part of this tennis community. And, whether it's going to Your Serve Tennis and get my racket strung and picking up my gear, and it just running into people that are just playing Alta, and tennis is our jam here. It really is. And I'm blessed and my family's blessed to have been here since 1990.
I'm still laughing. I don't have anything to say, Sean. I'm still getting over it. Well, we left out World Team Tennis too, Luke. I mean, that's what we had a blast doing that with the Thunder. That was always a entertaining experience.
That's right. Yeah, that place is gone now. It was a bummer.
It's gone.
Yeah, like I said, that you can win here in Atlanta with tennis events, but you have got to go to them, give them a reason why to go. You got to entertain them and entertain their kids and things. And I think the Atlanta Open has done that, continues to evolve. And talked with the management. Now Eddie Gonzalez has now moved on after a great run, just getting it to where it really needs to be. And now with the product, I think Atlantic Station is great for the players because you get to stay right there at that hotel, walk down the practice. This year, I think practice is at Georgia Tech. So that, and the wild cards go to the players from Georgia Tech. So you really start to connect to why I've got to put that on my calendar, as well as bringing in the Coco Gauffs and these WTA players. That also gives another look, because more than half of our players that play Alta are women. And you got to talk about fashion. You got to talk about team. You got to talk about how to win more matches, because this place doesn't like to lose. They like to compete. And it's just a great place. World Team Tennis was awesome playing down here, and so I just think, and it's the best, in my opinion. You're going to see something very soon coming out of this place as far as like a top ranked pro on the male or female side. You're seeing a lot of collegiate players coming out of here, out of, whether it's Old Town and the various, academies and things like that. Great coaching and great competition. I've got nieces and nephews. I mean, I had to travel, honestly, one way to Detroit's 5 hours. One way to Chicago is 5 hours. Get in the van, and you got to, after school on Friday, and you got a match Friday night, and you're just still trying to find your legs in the first set, getting out of the van, and you're playing. Now, I mean, my family, they play in Macon, they play in Rome, they play in Atlanta, and you don't have to go anywhere. You stay right here and get your butt kicked and get better. And I mean, there's players going to Notre Dame, there's players going to Georgia, there's players going to Texas schools all over the place. And it'll just be, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see someone really take off and do some special things at majors.
So how do you instill, I told Sean, we did the Team Luke last summer.
Yeah.
And the effort you put in, and I called Miss Patricia that night and I said, just watch him tomorrow. He's going to be sore. I said, we were out there in the heat for how many hours? And I said, everybody else is done. And then he goes on, puts on a serving exhibition and allows everybody to return his serve lefty and righty. I was like, I've never seen anything. And we're not young anymore. I'm not going to speak for you, but I'm older than you. So I'm like, he's going to be sore tomorrow. I said, so please watch him. But how do you instill that sense of fight? And as a coach, much lower level, of course. But like you said, the building the bricks, chopping the wood, that fact that everything's got to have a purpose. And I think that more than anything, because certainly can't talk about facilities. Kids here got the greatest facilities in the world. Mm-hmm. How do we instill that fight when these kids get to come from so much that they don't understand what you're talking about? And when they look at you, when you say it out loud, it's the old, well, you walked uphill 5 miles in a snowstorm. We've heard it all before.
Yeah. Well, today's athlete is different. I don't care where you are around the world. I'm blessed. The last year I've been working with Coco Vandeweghe, former top 10 player in the world. She's like, I think she's 150 now. She just dropped a bunch of points. But we played all the majors last year. We played Australia this year. So I really am jacked up because I've been doing the TV since '94 with ESPN. So that's a different type of access and a different type of intensity, the long days and things, but you're really not invested. When you're playing, and the next thing, the closest thing to playing at that level is coaching, because there's even more pressure on the coach, I find, because you can coach now. You're able to talk to them when they're on your side of the court, or you can give signals when they're on the other side of the court, but it's still really tough because you can't really say that much. They're too far away. It's not like you're sitting on the bench with them. But what I've learned is that this player, no matter where they're from in the world, you got to meet them where they are. I think back in the day, there was whether right or wrong, you did what your teachers told you to do. You did what your parents told you to do. Your coaches, that they told you to run, you ran, and you just trusted, or I don't know if you even trusted, you just did it. And for me at least, when I clicked in, the harder I work, the better I get. When I learned that my secret weapon wasn't that I had a big forehand or that I could serve 130 miles an hour with both hands or anything like that. The secret weapon was, holy cow, like if I work as hard as I get better, the harder I work. That little, like, the light went off whenever that was in my teenage years. And like, until then I was, you lose focus and you wander. And so today's athlete, how can I, as a coach, connect with this generation? And what I say is meet them where they are and then try to move the needle. So is it their brand? Is it their social media thing? Is it their, whatever that is, their talent can get them only so far. And then you've got to sit down and negotiate that next, chop of the wood. That you just got to do it and understand, listen, it's just, there's a maturity thing. Some people get it, some people don't. Agassi got it in his 30s. Right, he was just really, really talented. And then he found a love for the sport in his 30s, an understanding of the magic of competing and losing and getting better and winning and sacrifice and all that stuff. Some people have it from the start, from the jump, like Rafael Nadal. That dude is a killer. Right. And maybe a Kyrgios never gets it. We don't know, but they have tennis, and whether it's the juniors I see, wherever they are, they have tennis kind of where they have it. And if the parent wants it more than they do, it's not going to work. If the coach wants it more, just because the kid is talented doesn't mean they're going to reach full potential, whatever that is. The kid has to do their part, and that's 50% of it. I mean, I've coached in college at Syracuse University for 8 years. I know, producing that level to the next level, which is you got to college, now let's get you world ranked. And so half the players I worked with out of 42, we got 21 WTA ranked. And that was not easy. I'm not getting blue chips. I'm not getting kids out of Atlanta that go to Georgia or to Florida. I mean, I'm getting kids that are multiple sport athletes that are 4-star tennisrecruiting.net. How can I make that kid better? And there's a magic in that too, because they haven't had a lot of success, and you can have a lot of input and they'll grab onto it because they've lost a lot. They've taken a lot of shots to the head. You take some blue chip that, I could go to Florida, could go to Georgia. I'm kind of, I've already made it. That's another challenge. And so your ability to trick both of them into working harder, buying into the harder I work, the better I get. And the bottom line is, if you don't love it, love all of it. Love not only the winning, but love the losing. And the losing tells you you've got to get better. And then for me, it's like, it was always that rocket fuel that said, okay, I'm not doing enough. And meet them you've got to be able to listen, if they're not, reaching their part of the deal, they're 50%, they're part of it. Sit them down, have a mature conversation. They just want to be communicated with, in my opinion. When they're acting up or they're having a bad day, take a timeout, take a little 2-minute timeout and say, okay, what's up today? Could be stuff in school. There are a lot of pressures on these kids that we never faced. They read their replies. These pros, I'm watching Francis Tiafoe last week. We're at the US clay courts in Houston. This dude played probably the best match I'd ever seen. He played second round, bone crushed this guy. Bone crushed him. And it was on clay, and Francis doesn't have a great clay court record, but he ends up winning this tournament. As soon as he shakes hands, he goes right to his phone, checks his phone. That's very important to these guys. And I don't care how much the older generations try to say it's nothing but a distraction. I'm saying it's a reality. How can we work with that kind of athlete to get him to the next level? Wayne Ferreira, who's been working with Francis Tiafoe the last few years, it's been a process. He's always talked about it's a process. Francis, we're stretching now for the next 30 minutes, no phone.
Right.
You know what I mean? But Francis is an adult now. He's in his mid-20s. You can say that to someone as an adult who that's what they do for a living. He's got big contracts with Nike and Yonex and other places. He's got his agent now is Serena Williams' old agent. And so he's playing big boy stuff now. But with juniors, sometimes they don't understand. Maybe their things are being taken away from them. Maybe their sacrifices, I'm missing out on everything because I'm seeing on my phone my friends are having fun here, or they're going to this party, that party. You've got to somehow find to connect them to the love of the sport and how beautiful this sport is by working hard and continuing to improve. Because if they shut off, you'll never get them. As soon as they're done, because they get cheated every weekend. Yeah. Someone changes the score, some weird parent. It's the hardest sport in the world. I honestly have teared up watching kids at junior tournaments walk with their bags and walk with their water jugs, and they're walking out there with their opponent. No umpire, no scorekeeper, no coach. Every other sport gets that. Tennis is so far behind because traditionally we've never done it. Why would you put your kid out there in that environment? Now, I truly believe there should be coaching, whether it's you pay for a coach, you don't have a coach, a parent should be able, or a fellow competitor, a buddy, sits on the court, have some fun, whatever. You go through the courses, you get certified to be able to on-court person. And if you act like a knucklehead, the roving umpire can haul, you're out tennis parent or you're out coach. If something like in other sports, like they do in, Little League baseball or football, parents are very much involved in the coaching process. And if they don't behave, they're out. I think tennis, in our sport, we are so far behind every other sport because a kid, I know this because two of my nephews that were very talented and loved to play, they got sick of being cheated every single weekend. Every weekend. What am I doing it for? I'd rather go ride my dirt bike. I'd rather go hang out with my friends because this stinks. I work hard after school, before school, and I get there and it's not even a fair fight. So to be able to manipulate that or work with that as a coach, that you've got to listen. A great coach is a listener, a great listener, because they're showing you through their body language, they're showing you through their words. Maybe they're late to practice, maybe their ball pickup stinks, maybe they're going to the bathroom too many times. They're telling you, I don't want to do this. Okay, what can we do? Can we shorten up? You know, my brother liked to play games to 11. Okay, you don't want to go 100 balls cross court, but we'll play games to 11, and he loved it. Got to find out, you know, what kind of practice partner there are. So that's a magic in coaching, is trying to figure out every little combination to every kid you have.
And you don't like, I see Bobby nodding his head when you're talking, and I would take it a different direction. You say, why would you do that to your kid and put him out there on your own? And my first thought is, would you like the short answer or the long answer? Because I come at it from the point of view of, I look at that 10-year-old whose bag is as big as he is, and he works his way through all the adults, excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am, works his way up, makes his way up to that desk and says, hello, excuse me, my name is Sean, and I need to check in for my tennis match. And I think that is badass.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. I just seen the burnout, because remember now, you know, especially at the pros, I mean, I've seen Swiatek. This girl's worth whatever, $100 million. She's number one in the world. She's got future Hall of Fame, everything. She's crying. It means that much to her, but I mean, listen, there's certain losses that are going to make you cry, that as competitors we all do. But the United Cup before the Australian is not one of them. And to me, when you see the electrode stuck to your forehead because your mental coach, I mean, in front of everybody else, I mean, I look at that as like, I would do anything to play her. I would have rental space in that cranium of hers, and maybe a Polish penthouse. I don't know, maybe like a walk-in closet. I would have so much rental space in her headspace if she's that fragile, I can get right in there as a competitor and I can work that over.
That's how good she's got to be, even in spite of being that fragile.
That's what I'm saying.
That's how good she is.
But you take someone like, let's say, Jessie Pegula, who doesn't need the money. You're talking about, you know, all these people with me. She just loves it. She's the only one that I see. Coco Gauff too, that will go and scout their opponents. Most of the time, the coaches do it. She'll sit with the coach, and they will scout together. They will, after every practice, every match, before press conference, they will hit practice serves. That's her weakest. Pegula's weakest shot is her second serve. She practices it every day. And then after at every tournament, for the most part, even majors, she plays doubles. Same with Coco Gauff. Who are the biggest risers in our sport? Coco Gauff and Jessie Pegula. And what do? They put in the work, they play the dubs, and they don't want to. They know, they listen to, they're very coachable. And you're right, it's badass to see these kids walk up there, but there's so much doubt, there's so much nerves, and the burnout factor is huge. And I see it at the pro level, seen it at the college level. I won't even name the name. A dear friend of mine that I grew up playing in juniors, college, and pros, his daughter is elite. And I'm watching video, and she's screaming how much she hates tennis. And she's in a pro event, and she's screaming, and it's like, man, like, get her off the court. Just get her off the court. Let's go to a movie. Let's go grab a pizza or something like that. Like, let's talk this out, because it's a 15,000. Like, this is the lowest level that you can play. If you're really going to do it, if you're feeling this way here, the pressure is even more the higher you get. The pressure is more and more. So we've got to listen to our players, and we got to love them, and we got to try to understand them, because it's a lonely game, and it's filled with pressure. And I hate to see these kids that burned out and never want to play again. And I think I saw a stat. I think it was over 70% of college players, D1, never swing another tennis racket after their last ball struck of playing college. All that work, all that sacrifice, they are so good. They are so good. And they are done with it. Why is that? I think let's do a study on that. Let's really deep dive in that. And to me is we just see, oh, this player got burned out, and they just get kind of pushed aside, and we just keep marching forward. And I think there's a lot of learning we can do, growth we can do by figuring out, by talking to players that did lose it and lost it for a while, and what happened here, and what would you have done differently? Did we listen to you? I just think we have to do a lot more in finding out how we can stop the burnout factor. And these kids are getting scholarships. They get to play there's a lot of love. High school tennis is great in this area. I've got nieces and nephews that are playing high school tennis. It's so much fun getting in the bus and with kids that are going to play club tennis or scholarship tennis at the next level, or maybe not, but maybe one day they'll come back and play ELTA. You never know. This is a sport for a lifetime.
Sean, how much time do we have? Because I don't want to open up Pandora's box unless we have time, because I know he's all around it. And like I said, I have a little bit of background on Luke just because of how well I know his mother, so I hear things. But and I preface this, I'm going to steal a Miss Patricia line. I'm Norman Nobody from nowhere. But what we're talking about, I love the fact that I had an epiphany with why I was laughing with your stories. My dad, I remember this, and I'm 50, going on 58. 9 years old playing football. I got kicked in the shin by a plastic cleat. I'm on the ground. My big father comes up, picks me up, carries me off the field, looks me in the eye, doesn't yell, just looked at me. Hurts like hell, doesn't it? And, he made pain a choice. Yeah. And for the rest of my life, I've approached pain as a choice. Yeah, it hurts. And I'm not one of those guys who wants to, I don't seek pain, but I had this surgery. Yeah, it hurts. It's part of it. So I think these kids partially, from a societal standpoint, just have way too many choices. So yeah. They're not as fortunate as we were. We're making a decision. Okay, I can work harder and I understand pain. I got it. Now I can go. They're, like you said, the first thing they do all the time, I say, go get water, and water I sit there and I go, nowhere did I say, go pick up your phone. Yeah. I said, go get water. So, how to address that, and how much of that, besides societal, how much is that it starts earlier. And I think, coaches are in a precarious position. I remember Robbie Ginepri playing in the old Georgia Tech tournament years ago. Mm-hmm. Dennis Horde, who who's coach of the Thunder, was playing doubles on the court next to him with Greg Kasha. So I'm there to watch these two, but I'm seeing this amazing young player next to him. And I'm like, those are my friends. I know them, but who's the guy next to him? And somebody tells me Robbie Ginepri, and I'm watching him, and I'm like, my God, this kid's. Then he served, and I said, uh-oh. Yeah. And they're like, again, I'm nobody. I'm a coach. Yeah. As Brian Pegula, he's the wise ass announcer who also a coach is, but I'm nobody. And I said, that's a problem. If his goal is to be top 10 in the world, that serve is going to ultimately get exposed. But hey, I'm Jerry Baskin, local guy. Yeah. I'm never going to get another Robbie Ginepri. Do I want to be the one who says, Robbie, we got to break that serve? That's hard. That's not just the kid. You got in Atlanta, but you got to convince the parent, because they're every step of the way. Sean, I love your analogy, but I'm going to take it a different direction with the 10-year-old who walks up themselves. I don't like it when the parent walks up with carrying the kid's tennis bag and signs them in. That to me is that's red flag time. Yeah. So how much of it can we put on the coaches to make those stuff? I mean, who wants to be a teacher today? They didn't. Well, did they study? Well, that's not. They did. They deserve a retest. Listen, life, you don't get a retest. Nowhere did anybody say life was supposed to be easy or you're entitled to anything. And how do you avoid it today? How do we get these kids to go to the next level? Other than, and I think this is a great study again, what you're talking about. It's going to happen later in life, where Connors, McEnroe, they were on the top. They were number one at 21, 22 years old. Are we going to see more Tiafos coming into their prime more along the lines when they're physically should be, 27, 28? Do you see that as being more of the future?
Well, again, I'm very a couple things. First, as far as the pro stuff, players, when I played early 30s, you were done. Connors was an outlier at 39 when he made that run in the semis. He was 200 in the world, needed a wild card. So he was really out of the game, to be honest. Right. But guys and girls are playing well way into their late 30s, early 40s. A couple of guys, Bupana just won Indian Wells doubles at, I think he's 44 years old.
Right.
And it's real simple. You know, a stretch back in the day was honestly like 3 like things down to your leg, and you'd grab honestly your McDonald's after, you know, between matches, and you'd walk out with your burger and fries and your shake, and you'd play your match. These guys now, they are so locked in. And I mean, everybody. There isn't one player. I've been out there now as a coach. So the access I have there as a coach is so different. I am in those men's locker rooms. I am in the players' lounges. I'm in the workout areas every day. And the amount of on-court stuff we did was way more. We spent a lot of time on the court working on shots and plays and things. They don't do that anymore. It's less on-court stuff. It's called load management. But what they do is like Coco Vandeweghe, and she's one of all of them. That there, no one can skip this. She will spend 45 minutes on, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a court at noon. We get 1 hour. We get 1 hour, and sometimes it's with another tour player. Sometimes if they have hitters there, so, you know, college guys or whatever that can hit with them, or I'll get in there and hit. But ideally, you want another WTA player. And if you're getting ready for the match, it's just a warm up. If it's the day before, some of you're playing sets, but it's just 1 hour. We will leave the hotel at 9. We will get there by 9:30, 9:45. At that point, she goes to the workout room and she will start her stretching, which goes for an hour. And then she'll start her resistance bands and does all the upper body, lower body, resistance bands. It's like another 45 minutes to an hour. Before we step on the court, she's doing all of that stuff. Then she preps her drinks. It's all this stuff. We go out to the court, do our court 12-1, and then we go back to the fitness to go for another hour on flexibility and resistance training and speed work and things. All on her. And I'm the coach, but I'm the tennis coach. She has a team of the fitness guys back in San Diego where she's from. But you know, some of these players travel with their fitness coaches. And if you don't do that, forget it, because it's so physical now. It's almost overcomes the mental. Like Svitek's a good example. Physically, she is so locked in. And that's a normal day. We are back at the hotel for a 1 hour practice. We're back at the hotel about 3:34 for 1 hour practice. It's insane. Yeah. And everybody's doing it. Everybody, or you can't keep up. The treadmill is going too fast. So now to go to how do you instill that into the local player and the 10-year-old and things like that? I truly believe the coaches have to decide, or the programs, you got to have an elite section, and then you have like the normal kids that are out there, they're just playing tennis, high school or whatever they're playing. But have an elite part where the coach or the program decides boundaries or rules. Number one, no phones.
Right.
No phones. Now, some places don't allow parents. I don't have a problem with the parents because, in my opinion, they're a huge part of the equation. They pay for it. Yeah. They're, you know, I'm still teaching on the weekends. I got to make my cash. I can't go to, you know, with them to watch Tommy play over in Macon. So the parents are going to I believe, bring them into the equation to coach them how to coach, how to scout. If the parent of the kid is not charting the match, there are a lot of great apps that chart the match. If you're allowed to film, I know that's a tricky thing right now because both players have to agree that swing vision, which is unbelievable. You just put your phone up there because we don't do enough video. Our kids don't see themselves play enough and break that stuff down. But if you don't include the parent to help them, like, how do you deal with losses? How do you deal with the kid who doesn't want to be there? How do you, all these different things, because the coach has that experience of decades and decades of how to deal with pressure in these things. And the parents that are funding it also, depending how much a say they want to have, because in the end, if they don't want to pay for it, the train ain't going and the player ain't going to play. So to me, it's when I was coaching in college, and this was 06, when the phones were starting to come in, okay, no phones on the court. No, I mean, it's just, you got to tell them up front. These are the rules. Don't break the rules. And if this isn't for you, you can go down to the next place and maybe they let you do that. But for here, this is how we do it. Now, remember, as the coach, you may lose that income, and that's not easy. The best coaches in pro tennis are the ones that are a no BS operation. And one of them is Brad Stein. And Brad Stein just happens to work with Tommy Paul, just in the top 15 in the world, just happens to be one of the highest risers in the game right now, because Tommy knows if he does something, off this, off that, he's going to hear it from Brad Stein. But Brad Stein doesn't need the money. Brad Stein, helped Jim Courier become #1 in the world. He does, whether Tommy wins a major or not, is not going to affect Brad's stock as far as his what he's put into the game. So there's certain coaches that can do it. Brad Gilbert, Yvonne Lendl, Larry Stefanki. I mean, these, you can look at, and that's why Brad doesn't have a gig right now. That's why Yvonne only works with Andy Murray, because it takes a special player to want to be coached. Now, can you do that as a junior coach? Can you honestly do that? Where these are the standards and the player has to meet the standard. The standard is the standard. And if you're not meeting that commitment, it's the commitment to that commitment, then they have to be put off, because one bad apple all of a sudden affects everybody else. Well, and if it's your best player, you're done. It's out in college. I see it, it just doesn't work. As far as, I mean, if you're okay with it, if you're okay as a coach getting a paycheck, then that's fine. But to me, if you want to be #1 in the world, and that's to me why I'm in it. I'm in it to coach that way, in it to play that way. I want to win majors, and I want to be the best in the world. And the money comes after that, and the fame and all that stuff comes after that. The ESPN interviews come after that. But you got to put in the work with discipline, focus, and I believe the coach sets that standard.
So here, and this is the fun part, and I love it. And two things I want to build off this. One, we always try to personalize and make it Atlanta. How much do you think the Atlanta's tennis prowess is really is detrimental to the junior development? Because, as I like to say, for lack of a better word, tennis is mommy driven in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Mom took up alto later in life. She enjoyed the sport. She introduces it to her child, thinking it's something they can do together. The child, if it has any athletic ability, will rapidly pass the mommy. But now we have a tennis player who says, well, I want to go to Clemson to go to college. And they go to the Clemson camp during the summer. So I've been to Clemson. And they come to you and say, well, I want to go to Clemson. And I look at them and say, you might want to go to Clemson, but you're not working hard enough to go to Clemson. So how, again, to personalize and make it Atlanta, do you feel like Atlanta can be a deterrent, as far as the growth to get, if you say you want to be that elite player, because they should be listening to you. You know what it is to be an elite player and what you have to do. And bottom line, it gets down to the simplicity of work. Mm-hmm. At home, mommy says, well, I started off a beginner and now I'm a 3-5 or worse yet, an A-level player. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So the question again, what's your question?
I mean, just local basis. Do you see Atlanta's, just the way Atlanta's built, is that conducive to raising, like you said, hey, Novak, best condition. Nadal is a freak. The Mike Tyson of tennis. Mm-hmm. That level of competitiveness. Those are the outliers.
Yep.
Does Atlanta breed itself to developing that kind of player just because of what they come from?
So you're saying, can Atlanta, do we have the possibility of developing the Djokovic's?
Yes,
or the college? Okay.
Just as there's so many variables these kids got to face.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge, right? And to me, the USTA should be in this game, but they're really not in the game. There's a presence, but not a forceful presence. The reality is, you look at the Clemson roster. Just look at the Clemson roster. Look at these rosters. Right. And the bottom line is, if there are no jobs, there are no job opportunities.
Right.
And so you may want to go to Clemson. it's really tough for an American to get an American gig at Clemson and some of these schools. So that's number one. If you're good enough, they'll recruit you and stuff like that. I will say Georgia Tech's done a good job, for the most part, recruiting Atlanta players, recruiting American players. Georgia too. If you see historically, they like to go local first. But the reality is, if I can get a better player from Lithuania, a higher UTR really changed the game, because you didn't know how would a 5-star here do against the number 2 Lithuanian. How would a 4-star do against the number 3 player from Spain? You just don't know. I know their UTR.
Yeah.
And you know what? It may be a little off, not much.
Right.
And it's pretty much spot on. And no one can hide now. I don't care where you are on the planet. Your UTR is your UTR. And if you had a good enough UTR, you can play at Clemson. And so you can just see that target. What does Clemson recruit as far as UTR, or what does Notre Dame recruit, and what does the Pac-12 recruit? And you can start, okay, that's a great goal. And then you kind of can even do some digging where they play when they were my age, where they play, how did they kind of get there? And so you can do some digging that way to figure out. But to me, Atlanta, of all the tennis communities I've been to around the planet, it's very unique because it's adult driven.
Right.
And the mom and dad would rather play than take Tommy to Macon. Because I take Tommy to Macon, I just busted my tail for all week, and I got my Elta match, and I just got my stuff at your serve, and Chris Wilson just set me up. He gave me a new dampener, like I'm ready, baby. And then I go to Macon, my kid's getting cheated. I'm here all weekend, no fun. And my kid's like screwing around, playing in the sand. Like, what am I doing? It's the one place on the planet where the adults have put themselves first. Like, listen, if you want to play, I'll put you at this academy. There's a lot of places that you can go, and they'll make you a good little tennis player. And if you really want to do it, I don't mind doing it. But if you go out there and act like a knucklehead, I'm going to go out, and my tennis is really important to me. And I'm going to do my groups and things. So I think it's a unique environment. I still think that if you really dig down of how Atlanta produces its players, it's still very successful, considering there aren't a lot of opportunities at the college level for as many as the amount of kids that we have. Do you know what I mean? I think because unfortunately, even though we have $1.4 trillion in student loan debt in this country, our college coaches define winning as, I finished 3rd in the conference, instead of going their athletic director. And again, I was blessed. I didn't need the job at Syracuse. I wanted the job at Syracuse, and my athletic director at Syracuse and the board of trustees, the chancellor, I told them, listen, I'll do it. I just fresh off the tour in 05-06. And, but I only recruit Americans, and Americans that want to be pros, and took a lot of losses for that. Because like I said, I wasn't getting blue chips. Who's going to Syracuse to live in a snowbank? Not a kid who can go to, Florida or, Georgia State or something like that. But we got kids who wanted to be there in that snowbank and wanted to be pros. And so we did some special things up there, but I was able to put my terms down and say, this is how we define winning. Because every one of my kids that went there, the Americans, give back to the university, support the university. And I don't think internationals do that. And they're not winning national titles. And the ones that are, no one knows who they are. You ask someone in this tennis town, who won last year's NCAA, men's title? Who won last year? It's off the radar. So who's really winning? Not the American kid, not the American taxpayer. So you hit a nerve with me on that, because I think at that level, we really lose them, because we produce them out of this place, out of Atlanta. And like, okay, can I go here? Well, can't go to Furman. Why? Well, internationals. There, just look around. Internationals all over the place. So I think if you want to do it, you can, but you got to find programs that define winning as the American product. the American kid that deserves a chance, and then coach them up.
So take again, and agree with what you're saying. How much of it, as you said, should the burden lay on the coach? Yes, the coach has to set that once you come into his program. And let's take it down the line, as you said, the younger coaches, the coach who's local. Like you said, I can't travel on weekends. I have my daughter. I do my thing, but I'm invested from Monday through Friday. I can't afford to lose that. How much is a governing body like the USTA at fault for not creating that, not defining, and whether it be under the USTA banner, I don't know. And that's what I always said. The USTA to me is conflicted. It's supposed to be growing the game of tennis, but it also says it wants to develop one of the the best players in the world. There are two different things going on there, two hugely different things. Where is the arm that sits there and says, okay, if you want to take this path with your child, these are the steps, and these are the coaches. This should be mandatory. Class 101. Come speak to Luke. And what if your child wants to go to a D1 school? This is what they have to hear it. Let's make it now. So it becomes a decision. You can say yes or no. What can we do on a higher level to make everybody's job easier coming down?
Yeah, you talk to USTA. I'm a big fan of the USTA. I think you have to work with them. It's easy to take shots at them, people that do, and they have their valid reasons and things like that. But it's like, to me, asking them to be everything. I mean, like I said, I have my concerns with college tennis. I think we could. I mean, coaches are going to be coaches, and they're going to, they define winning, whether it's the record, their conference, staying employed, all that stuff. The reason you see a record number of Americans now in the top 100 in the world, singles, doubles, players that went to college, players that didn't go to college, turned pro, is a direct result what Patrick McEnroe did in like 08, 09, when he was Davis Cup captain, when he was director of player development, investing to foam ball, red ball, those short courts. I mean, he got a lot of flack for that, a lot of pushback from facilities and pros that said, you're out of your mind. I use yellow. I've done this for 100 years. Okay, great. Maybe there's another way. I'm a transition guy. I like the transition. There are some outliers where kids that are 8 should be playing yellow ball or not, whatever that is. But for the most part, to me, the USTA has produced this generation of American men and women that are winning slams. They're focused on, the 0.1 of 1% of that. I mean, that's as far as really the money goes. As far as the board of directors of the USTA, they've really shifted their funds to community tennis. And that's where the now is the fundamental, the foundation stones or the foundations of really good community tennis is happening right now. More money's going to the sections instead of player development. I think it's the first time, maybe 10, 15 years, more money's been allocated to community tennis rather than player development. And so it's a real balance. The reality is, the better the American side is, the more Coco Gauffs we have, the more Francis Tiafos we have, the more money goes to the US Open. More people go to the US Open. They're about to break 1 million people over 3 weeks. That includes the qualifying. And I want to say this, the best value in tennis, if you want to, a week, probably, I think everyone here is in school, but the week before the main draw of the US Open is qualifying week. And it's free for fans. And you can walk right into Arthur Ashe Stadium, front row, and watch the best players in the world. Last year was Serena Williams and Kyrgios and Rafa and all these guys going for free. And everyone in the New York area takes part in that. And thousands of people go. And even though the tickets are free, the food isn't, the merchandising isn't. They still get their scratch. And so what that means is more money for the sections that drives down to the communities and the coaches and the programs that builds that next layer of excellence. But as far as I truly believe the beauty of our country is that what we do here in Atlanta is so different than what they do in Orange County and Southern Cal, which has produced more American Grand Slam champions, Sampras, Tracy Austin, Lindsay Davenport, than any other, and a ton more than any other section in the nation. And so they do it differently than how we do it. Just courts, culture. But to me, it's how individually we can be as a coach in a program to shape our kids, because our kids will only go as far as they dream. If I dream to win a Grand Slam, okay, great. And you said this earlier. Are you getting up before school and hitting serves? Give me 15 minutes. You doing that? Okay, well, you know who's doing it? The kids in Russia.
The other guy.
I definitely know the kids in the Ukraine. Okay, you want to go to Clemson? That's fine, because the kid from Australia, they're right after school. They get 2 hours. This is what they're doing. So it's a kind of a reality check. You just can't post up and just show up 5 days a week. Are you playing a tournament twice a week? Are you getting beat 0-0 and then beating someone 0-0, but you're serving and volleying the whole time? You know what I mean? It's a whole kind of process. And you see the kids out there. I mean, they're out there. I mean, you see it in the work ethic. You see it in their hustle. They may not be the best ones, but they're coachable, and they'll catch the better ones, because maybe the better ones are maybe a little bit more talented, maybe put a few more balls in the court, but they're limited because they're not working as hard as the rest of the kids. I hope that answered your question. The reality is we have the coaching. You said I believe the one threat, and I like it. I like the competition, is that for the first time, tennis in our country specifically, it hasn't gone international yet, is we're in a battle for the first time. We have competition for real estate, pickleball.
Yeah.
Pickleball wants to take our courts. Cool. Love it. Love the sport. There's another area that tennis players can make money. Johnny Mack and Agassi and those guys, they just made $1 million. Great. Fantastic. Instead of like pushing that away, I'm pulling it in. Like, let's go. I've been at 2 places now where I was the director, and I thought pickleball was great. It filled my 6 to 10 in the morning, filled it up, making huge money. And as teaching it, I don't have to be there slugging out the cart and everything. I put like 30, 40 people out there, and I do rotations of 10 minutes. And all I do is like walk around, and I herd them, and I give them strategy, and I give them this and that. And I just put 40 people on the court at $5 a head. Everything works. Everybody, we're working, we're filling courts. So
See, Bobby, I knew we'd get the answers from Luke. We came in looking for answers, and that might be the answer. But Luke,
I don't know. Go forever. Sorry about that.
So we're gonna have to bring you back, I guess, maybe once a week or so, because I think there's content we could probably fill. But before we go, I want to ask one last question. And I don't know that I sent you ahead of time, so we might get an off-the-cuff answer on this, but maybe you've thought about it before. If you were king of tennis,
oh yes,
whether it was Atlanta, the world, the universe, king of tennis is Luke Jensen. Is there anything you would do, anything you would change, anything you would implement as king of tennis?
So at the pro level, I want you to stay with me on this. The coaching has just started, but I got a real problem with the coaching. Now, if the player's on your side of the court, you can talk to them. But, the towels, are away. You got to sit in these seats. And if you say something, you have to say it kind of loud. Well, they can hear you on the other side. Your opponents can hear what you're saying. So it's not really, it's a glorified cheering. That's exactly what at the Australian Open, the Ben Shelton, dangerous Ben Shelton, man, stock up on that guy. He's playing Tommy Stockholm, and let's see, I forgot which coach. One of them said, "Hey, so the Brad Steinkühler says to Tommy Paul, they're in Laver Arena. It's a huge place. Says, watch, take away the wide serve. They're on the same side of the court, but he's on the other side of that side of the court. So Ben hears that and serves an ace down the tee. So that's just one example. The other thing, so my player hasn't been playing on the bigger courts. We're out there in the weeds, on court 48. And so they put you out there in the field courts, and you got your little seat, and your opponent's coach is on the other side of the court. And I'm sitting there, and I chart all my matches. I chart everybody I coach. I chart their matches, because that tells you the story of the match. where we're making our errors. Is it in the fourth ball of the rally? Is it in the eighth ball of the rally? Where are we winning? Where are we losing? So I'm charting, and it's Susie Fan, and they're, ooh, what are you doing? Well, I'm charting the match. Well, which player are you with? So I'm running conversation. I'm in the stands with the fans, and I'm trying to focus and give so it's such a challenge. And so if I was king of pro tennis, I want it to be like NASCAR or let's say, Formula One, where everybody's got their teams. They got their coaches, their hitting partners, their Shakeologists, their mental coach, their trainer that rubs out their legs, all that stuff. Can you imagine you're got seats right behind the court, a little bit like World Team Tennis, but on the changeover, they you have the stringer. You could have your own stringer on the court. And they're stringing your racket. The masseuse or your trainer's rubbing your legs out. During your coach is doing the dry erase board and running, talking plays, that we mic that up and hear it, whether it's in their native language or not, whatever that is. Have both sides like that, I think would be fascinating to bring that kind of level, because out there's going to be some cool, entertaining stories, personalities that would come out that you normally would never see. And really I would give more access to the media behind the scenes, because people don't know how amazing, you see that Netflix thing. Have you seen that with all those guys, Taylor Fritz? That's probably to be honest, 30% of what is really going on. And the one thing that's going on for a year, which is fascinating, is especially on the women's side, not as much on the men's side, because there aren't really any top 100 Ukrainian male players, but there's plenty on the women's side, and there's plenty of Russian and Belarusians, and those guys grew up together. Now imagine the war going on, and the Ukrainians, they ain't getting on with the Russians and Belarusians. That's real. And I was in Austin at the Austin Open, and the transportation person, they don't know. They're just putting people in cars. So the Ukrainian gets, you're in this car, opens the door to the back, and one of the Russians is in there. And she's just like, hell no. And it's and it's real. It's not I just don't get along with it. The Ukrainians, my apartment building was destroyed. It's real on a daily basis what's going on. So that is fascinating stuff. So if I was king, I want a NASCAR kind of pit crew that does the massages, shakes, the shakes, does all the nutrition, gives me the coaching, strings my rackets on my side, and then goes and sits down, in the stands, and jumps back out on the changeover. I think that would be unbelievable. And they're mic'd up. And then I would show the Netflix thing. I would show more behind the scenes of really what's going on. And whether they agree or not, the players run the show right now in pro tennis. And it's not like when Roger and Rafa and these guys were playing, where you needed those guys. No one's really watching pro tennis right now. That's the reality. Pickleball, because they had those names with Agassi and McEnroe and those guys, that drew a lot more than tennis was. So that's what I would do. Then on the amateur side, I would go extremely local. I'd be going big time into schools. I would be going, putting a lot of my juice and my money behind going to basically the fundamentals.
Did we freeze?
He did.
You got to think maybe I hope he didn't have the car on the whole time. We might have lost him.
Yeah, we did. He's back.
Is he trying to get back?
Yeah. But I got to be out of here in 5 minutes.
Yeah, no worries. That was awesome.
I feel like we can talk forever.
Well, thanks, guys. I'm sorry about that. I put more quarters in the meter.
I like that. So you're saying, sorry, finish up with your amateur. You're talking about.
So if I was juniors and my goal would produce, to me, I want to be number one. I want to produce Grand Slam champions, American Grand Slam champions, singles, doubles, mixed, don't care. And I think you've got to get them before they start getting into other sports. So I think K through 6, and I'd be going to elementary schools, pre-Ks, and I'd bring mommy and me courses or daddy and me courses, teaching parents how to teach their kids. Because in the end, if you can get mom and dad locked in, some really cool stuff can happen.
We do a bit of that. That's actually one of the things Tennis for Children does, is how to play with kids.
Yeah. And I'd put money and pay pros to get into these programs that gets kids on the court, make it fun. I'll tell you make it fun, then from there, the love can start, growing some roots, and then you got a lifer.
Yeah, I like it. Well, then you and I need to talk about that, because that is one of the things we have targeted with my personal business as well. So we need to see if we can make that happen. But
it's a labor of love. When you start changing diapers in those tiny tots, you're in the middle of it, baby.
That takes a unique coach. And that's one of the things we remind parents. Say, it's actually one of the reasons why it's fairly expensive to get a tennis lesson for a 4-year-old, because it is a very unique thing. But that's a good target. I like that. And hopefully we can help with that. I don't know that we have a lot of target from the pro level, because in Atlanta, we don't do a lot of that. That's not really a target here. But Luke, seriously, this is fantastic. It's been a lot of fun. Like I said, I think we can talk forever. I know Bobby's got 9 more questions that he's going to have to write down for later.
Great. Well, anytime. Anytime. We'll do it from Wimbledon. That's my next ESPN gig. Okay. And so whatever you need, just let me know.
I've got this recorded. So do it from Wimbledon while you're
on. We'll do it from Wimbledon, baby. Go tennis. Go tennis.
I like it. We'll follow up. I appreciate it a lot.
See you, buddy.
Thank you, Luke.
Thanks,
guys.